me to share about the custom portlet development for today's session. So yesterday we have learned about the basic feature Liferay out of the book, modules, and how to customize themes and layout. So the only things that we don't learn about Liferay fundamental is just for the custom portlet, I think. This custom portlet is mostly will be based on Java code, since we follow on the Liferay default standard. So before we can go forward, we may need to make sure that we have prepared all the required workspace, and then later we create the MVC portlet, split action into render and action usually for submit button or any others. Render is for rendering page themes. I think we have done it already. So in to make Liferay workspace, it is mandatory to use Oracle GTK or GTK 8. So when we run Liferay, we just need the GRE. But when we go for the Liferay development, portlet development, then we really need to have GDK to be installed, because if we talk about the Java, every single code that we create, supposedly they need to compile first. And for Liferay, Liferay 7.0 or 7.1, they require at least GDK 8. So we need to use the GDK instead of GRA. Otherwise, we cannot combine the code. It's different. For example, like when we create the themes and layout, we don't need any GDK since there is no Java class in there. Besides the GDK, we may need to prepare also the database. So in this sample, I create a database in MySQL. Usually what we need is to just prepare an empty database with no tables first is okay. Then when we run Liferay, later Liferay will create their own table standard. So this is a table created by Liferay for default. And to test on the custom portlet, it's highly recommended to use dedicated database instead of the HSQL database. It's easy to ask for, take a look at the content, check the data, is it correct or not, something like that. Do some simple query, and yeah. So this is all required workspace, the GTK. Liferay can be run inside the IDE, or I think previously you run Liferay in directly in Tomcat. So at this moment I try to run Liferay inside the Tomcat also. It should be similar, because either we run from IDE or run directly in Tomcat. At the end, actually they run the same Tomcat. So creating workspace, I think we just keep it fast, since I understand that you have set up your own already. We just need to make sure that the Gradle point to the correct version. For example, at this moment maybe you already set up for 7.1. Just in case you want to set up the 7.0, then it highly recommend to create another workspace. Because if you mix both of them, maybe the Gradle will be a little bit confused which version supposedly they need to refer. This is actually the only properties that we need to configure on the Gradle. my workspace. Inside Gradle, there are a lot of properties. Gradle and Gradle.com. Yeah, this one is just to off-right. So mostly we just need to set the home and
So we set the
workspace.
home at the other one, is it? To override.
Actually on the workspace, I think on the either ways I think it should work. Okay, I try to view first. For Gradle, I think there's no workspace bundle. This is to get the release,
Okay.
and then we can set the Liferay home, Liferay.home. Liferay.home. It's actually to am I keep blinking? Okay, no. Okay. So Gradle. This one don't have also.
It's inside bundles, is it?
No,
I think
but
so.
bundles actually the when we deploy, when we do deploy, actually by default this will be put inside the bundle OSGI modules. Since the default, for example, in my workspace, we don't set any configuration yet. So when we do deploy, this workspace try to put the jar file inside the bundles OSGI modules. This is actually the bundles. Actually, the default place for us to put the Tomcat. Usually, if you put the standard configuration, usually you will put in there. But we can also store Tomcat on another place.
Okay.
Because the reason is that for me, for example, I have many Liferay projects. Since every project they have their own workspace, if I put my Tomcat inside every bundles, then I will have so many Tomcat, and every single Tomcat within the Liferay workspace, it takes like 2 or 3 gig space.
Okay.
So it will be require a lot of space if we have a multiple project.
Okay.
Yeah. To point, this one's actually to tell the Liferay on where is the home and where is the Tomcat is located. Liferay.home.
The Tomcat location, as in the Tomcat folder or right to the bin?
Tomcat folder.
Just Tomcat folder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Liferay home. If we talk about let's put Liferay.home. So this is the properties. Close all. So yeah, Liferay bundle. My Tomcat is inside Liferay. So if we talk about Liferay home, this means the home folder for the whole Liferay. So the default will be /bundles, but for my case, I put in this. So the Liferay home should be something like this.
Okay.
And Liferay workspace home directory is actually the same.
So Liferay home is usually pointing to the Tomcat. The Liferay workspace is the workspace lah, right?
This should point the Liferay DXP home. Or actually this configuration is just if you want to make when you deploy, then it's directly run on the Tomcat. But for my case yesterday, so if you don't set this thing, actually it's also not so big deal, since you can still able to deploy whether you drag and drop the jar file or you upload using the control panel like what we have done yesterday. The reason that we share on how to deploy using control panel or drag and drop, actually when we do deployment on the server, we cannot do this way. So for example, if we talk about the dev server or UAT server, it's not like when I deploy this module, it's directly go to the dev server. I don't think we should go that way, right? Because this is just for the local development. We need to test. After everything is worked, then we move into dev server. And the way we move deploy jar into web server, usually we just need to bring the deployed one, the jar or WAR file. Example Liferay server. This is so, and every module, for example, it will be deployed under build. This one yesterday we go for themes. It's also same. Theme should be on the disk. We have theme either build or disk. This is actually to wrap everything inside the build. So for the themes will be WAR, for layout will be WAR file, but for modules will be jar file. So in every single module, we would have a small modular jar file. So later we will try to create the so this is the example on the workspace where the properties where it's located. Actually in my by default my workspace, I still not set anything. So if you want to auto deploy, then you can set similar like this. Liferay home is actually pointing to the home of Liferay. Same with Liferay workspace home there. It's actually to tell this exactly the same, because this is actually pointing to Liferay home also. The folder that actually contain the Tomcat and OSGI and deploy. Okay. So after we create the workspace, then we will go for the custom portlet development. But before we going forward, maybe I need to share a little bit about what we discussed on the first session about what is custom portlet and what is the modular things. Okay, so this one
should be okay. You can rub off then should be fine.
Every portlet contain at least there are many different portlet. If we have a portlet with, for example, the UI and database, then this will be split into MVC portlet module, and the second one will be service module. So what is service module is actually contain a service layer and API layer. So every single screen with form, for example, they will create 3 different .jar. For example, this is the UI.jar, this is the service.jar, and this is the API.jar. So there is 3 .jar that we need to deploy. By default, since both API and service are located in the same module, they will already have relation out of the box. So every service module, they will by right they will have service and API, right? And the unique development in Liferay, service module is actually Liferay use another framework called Service Builder. The Service Builder actually depends on service.xml. So I may need to explain step by step. Unless have you learned about Service Builder before in Liferay?
Not really.
Okay, and actually, if we talk about this module, service module, the key module located in the one file configuration named service.xml. So what is the service.xml? This is actually the mapping into database table. So maybe you can suggest me what kind of table that we may create, like for example, what kind of portlet we want to build today.
Okay.
For example, registration or reservation. Okay, let's say I want to create.
What about the search? Is it possible to create search portlet?
Search portlet. Search portlet can? Sorry, search portlet. Search for which purpose?
Yeah, remember the banner inside.
That's actually that portlet is already there.
Oh,
so
okay.
we don't need to create. It's different.
Okay.
So we talk about the search portlet. Search portlet is actually a portlet used to search inside the index.
Okay.
Elasticsearch.
Okay.
And what we talk about today is actually how to create a custom portlet which actually related to the database. It's like the eForm, but like directly going to the database. I think for the search, if you intend to learn more about search, later we can show you about which portlet actually the search, and actually if we want to modify, you can modify from that point.
Okay.
You can either from search, I think either you need to create the additional, increase the version or modify the code.
Okay.
But for this for this session, our focus is actually on sharing about what is the portlet structure inside Liferay and how to develop. Because many developers make the mistake that they think that they can go with native development. So every single code they create by their own. At the end, they will spend too much time to deliver the same code.
Okay.
So I go back to the service layer.
Okay.
Inside this service layer, actually, the core will be service.xml. Inside this service.xml, this file will be mapped to every single table. We can have one, two, or more table inside service.xml, but the idea is that every single entity inside service.xml, it will be mapped to single table. So for example, we have table called order coffee, order. example, this is the ID, name, email, for example, age, option. So when we create a portlet inside Liferay, actually we have two options. If the tables is not generated yet, means we don't have the table yet, Liferay will create automatically using service XML. But if the table is already there, for example, another case that we need to create the UI for the existing table. So the service XML also can do the other ways, the first. So they can map whatever file inside service XML into existing table. The things that the column and the type must be similar. Yeah, later we can go deeply into this service builder.
Okay.
But the point is that when we have the same understanding about this service builder, then actually the development in Liferay is quite easy. In service builder framework, this use code automation. So actually, when we develop in Liferay, we just need to create the service XML, we build the service, and Liferay will create the rest of the code for standard CRUD. So actually, after we understand this pattern, the one that really need to develop as a developer is only on MVC Portlet, the UI, which actually consists view. This one standard using GSP in Liferay. Even Liferay using GSP, Liferay still use the JS framework. So every modules that we create, actually they will adopt the SPA. So still fast. Beside the view, we need to set the controller. This controller will define into at least the main Spring Portlet. This to replace the configuration of Spring, and the other will be action or render. The rest service Portlet. By default, if we just need a standard CRUD, we don't need to code anything. So after we understand this custom development Portlet inside Liferay, supposedly now we already have some view that actually development in Liferay is not as painful as what many people expected, since many of the code is actually generated by service builder, and developer actually they just need to focus on certain class to be code or to modify. They don't need to touch every code. This is actually the important on following the standard framework in Liferay, because actually if you ask me, can we use another framework to build Liferay? Yes, it can. But the thing is, if you don't follow the standard framework like a service builder, means you don't have the code automation. Yeah, later we will show you on the code automation itself. But the things that we may need to share, for example, if you pick another framework like standard Spring, or because in Liferay there are a lot of framework. But if we take a look the sample source, so most of them are actually use the same standard. You can check on the Google shell. This is all modules inside Liferay. The one that called API is the interface that's actually generated by Service Builder.
Okay.
If we don't use the Service Builder, means we need to create the API manually. Another modules like Service is usually the service layer for the modules itself. So actually it depends on what kind of portlet that we want to build, but for one complete package portlet, it's a combination within the UI and service which is connected to database. I think that's the full flow of any web application lah.
Okay.
Thank you. So how to create the MVC portlet? For example, a simple MVC portlet we just create using the IDE, and we create as a module. So I hope we still remember on the very beginning presentation that when we present Liferay most feature is a monolithic and modular. So starting from Liferay DXP, all modules usually we develop as an modules except the themes and layout, like what we discussed yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is how we create the MVC portlet. It's as easy as just click the single workspace can only have a single IDE can only have a one workspace. So we can create new Liferay module. So this is up to us what kind of modules that we want to create. For example, if we talk like my sample is order.
Or registration? Is it considered as a registration?
Registration.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Registration. Okay, we type Gradle, version, template. This is for the whole full stack portlet. We use the UI as an MVC portlet, and for the service, we will use the service builder. Service builder means we can have the service and API later. If we don't need any service XML, we use service only. So Liferay provide a lot of templates that we can learn one by one later, but the most important thing is the full stack development. For example, if we just want to create the API, how to use it, I think is we can use the service only, or they have like a standard API only. So for UI, we use the MVC portlet, and the next thing we set the class of this portlet. Okay. Back to the standard naming in Liferay, usually using the lowercase. Registration, for essential registration, MVC. So we get MVC. Cannot have space. Package standard form dot registration. Yeah, it's done. So Liferay will the Gradle will download the template, and they will create a new module called registration. Especially have to refresh. registration MVC. This is the new one that we just create just now. So if we talk about the MVC portlet, this is like what we have done previously. We need to understand the default structure of the portlet itself. So here everything is in Java. The portlet, the constant. The main class for this portlet will be a registration portlet that we just defined in the beginning under this package. So starting Liferay DXP, all Spring configuration they change into annotation based, so it's auto generated. If we want to learn more about what is the available annotation, we may refer to the Spring 4 library in Java. So by default it's empty, and in this configuration we can see that actually this controller will accept any path, and then they will redirect into view.jsp. So where is the view.jsp? This view is located inside resource. So inside resource there is a language properties together with the resources. This is the view, and by default this view to be able load standard UI framework, we can define inside init.jsp. It's actually any standard tag clip that we want to use, and this is the standard tag clip that we usually use in Liferay. It's actually same as what Liferay use. This is the standard 2.0 portlet from Java. Then standard allow UI, Liferay portlet, Liferay themes, Liferay UI. This is all the standard tag that we usually use inside the GSP. So to test it, whether is it connect or not, we can do like control and space, and if we do control space, actually at this moment I don't see any text that we just highlight before. So supposedly they has like C, portlet, allow UI, something like that. And if we inspect a little bit, then this is there's something mistake here. This view.jsp should include the init, but the init is actually inside the same folder. So we need to remove this line. We save. So there is some misconfiguration inside the Liferay templates.
Okay.
After we set like this, then all the tag now we have. So allow UI, GSDL, CE, GSP, Liferay themes, Liferay UI, all available tags is already here. We can use any available tags here, or we can also see the snippet. Available tags. Actually, there is some another control panel inside the right that actually can be used for easier development. So show Windows, show view snippet. Yeah. So this is a snippet that actually contain all the standard tag, service builder, then like allow UI, the add button. For example, if we just drag and drop here, it will have like standard parameter, or we can also create something using just control and space. Sorry. And will allow you a. So when, for example, when we set as google.com, this is the Google link, something like this. So most of the text is already there. Before we go any further, so now we have understand what is the default templates that comes from Liferay, like the Portlet, the view, and language. Another things that we may need to focus is on the build the gradle and bind. Bind usually we never change, but this build the gradle is actually the information about this module which is referred to which parent. For example, this is like Maven. So do you have any experience using either N or Maven?
No,
Not yet. Usually you come from .NET.
I'm more on .NET, but I did use this Eclipse using Gradle.
Yeah,
to create
yeah.
library, yeah.
Yeah, or if you have used a Gradle before, then it's similar lah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's actually the place where we put any dependencies. So any dependencies actually we define here,
Okay.
and we just need to make sure that the one that we call actually exactly the same fashion as what we have inside the Tomcat. Yeah, otherwise, if we, for example, if we put the wrong fashion, it's not like Maven, because if in Maven, if we put the wrong fashion, Maven will grab from Maven repository inside the internet. They will download and they will package in there. But at the end, that will be a monolithic. Inside Gradle, especially inside the Gradle Liferay, to be able integrate with any modules, we need to find the package and version correctly using Gradle. Using a Google shell. This is actually if we want to, for example, the content journal. There are a lot of content. Journal API, Journal API version 3.0.2. This is the name of the modules. But then if we want to find the full package name like this, we can use the command B. Together with the PID A19. So we have like com.liferay.journal API. This is the name, and this is the version.
Okay.
Beside the Gogo shell, we can also use apps manager. Mostly is similar. Liferay journal, but sometimes journal API. But they don't display the details. Inside the apps manager, they just show the high level package, not the real version. So it is highly recommended to use the Google shell, since we can get any details using this Google shell. Okay. Journal API, journal technique, and so on. Okay. So we back to the MVC Portlet. So after we create this MVC Portlet, it is highly recommended for us to test the Portlet itself. For example, we do deploy and put inside Liferay. we go for the Gradle. Modules. Okay, put in registration MPC Portlet. Build and deploy. Okay. We can check that it's not auto deploy since we don't set the Gradle dot properties inside our workspace. If we set the Gradle properties, mostly it auto deploy. Later we try.
Okay.
We at this moment we try to standard deployment using apps. Inside build library. Start deployment. So our module is started already. We can check inside Google Shell also. Status active, so supposedly we can put we can drag and drop our new portlet in this new Liferay. Example, we create a new page for registration. So inside our view, we have like standard from Liferay this one, this view by using the key, and the other is actually the one that we just create at using Alloy UI. Later we will create a form inside this portal, inside this portlet form together with the list. But at this moment, at least we can understand that the MVC, default MVC is running properly first.
So we have to use the Alloy UI instead of the normal ARF, is it?
Yeah, actually, if you want standard ARF also able to work.
Okay.
The thing is that
What's the difference actually?
okay, let's recheck. Okay. Actually, the difference is on the standard HTML, because if we talk about the text, the text template, something like this, is actually not a single HTML code. Usually, Liferay wrap into few section HTML. So let's try compare both of this and make it exactly the same. Both is work, but for example, when we talk about the this one, yeah, then we do deploy again. So before we do deploy, let me set the Gradle properties. The Liferay home and configuration. Check. Liferay home. And one more thing is yeah. Back. Space is 7.1 is sometimes funny. Yeah, it's already auto deploy now. Functions registration started. We have a Google and Yahoo.
Okay.
From the UI seems similar, but if we do inspect, for allow UI at href at this moment same. But if we talk about another allow UI, for example like input, the difference between standard HTML input with allow UI input is a little bit different. Since inside allow UI input letter, for example, allow UI input. We can have validator in here. For example, input name. Since this is registration, compare to standard input. HTML input. So this something different between okay, for add href or allow UI href actually don't have any difference, but here I create another text comparison about allow UI input is actually only I put only name same required and HTML input. By right, if we talk about HTML input, they don't have label and the style they don't follow standard responsive.
Oh, okay.
So actually,
it's rich UI lah.
yeah, it's a rich UI. It's like a jQuery also have the jQuery UI, and Alloy UI is actually the standard UI that's used by all Liferay modules. So at the end, if we use the same rich UI framework, it will have the standard look and feel. If we change this thing, then all Liferay module also follow. But if you use another way, like for example, if you use the standard HTML input, then you may need to put more codes. You need to create a label. You need to modify the style class. Because if we if we check inside the Alloy UI input, this is actually Alloy UI input. It actually have more HTML code inside. So this will be inside the control label class, and yeah, they use the SVG for asterisk.
Can we since this is part of Portlet, you can embed it into the pages. Can we use the class from a theme? Just use back the
can. So if we want to put more class later, for example, we just put CSS class here. So for example, the CSS class called Sarah's input.
This Alloy UI means it's Bootstrap so lah. It uses Bootstrap.
It's not really Bootstrap, since the Bootstrap comes later, while Alloy UI comes earlier. If you talk about the Alloy UI, it's the rich UI based on Yahoo UI, which is like long time ago before jQuery UI.
Okay.
But since Yahoo UI is not popular, then Liferay built their own framework. They call it the Alloy UI. I think this is the.
So it won't conflict with Liferay framework?
No. So this is actually the main framework that we able to refer.
Okay.
So based on Yahoo UI and all the documentation, we can refer from this. Since it's based on Yahoo UI, so we can use either Alloy UI or Yahoo UI. Yeah. Many documentation about Alloy UI we can refer from this web also. The things that we understand from the development is quite easy, and we don't need to put many codes to deliver what we usually do on the standard CRUD. After we familiar on develop within the CRUD module, I think to create a single form with the dedicated table, standard dedicated table, in less than 1 day you should finish lah.
Okay.
So it's supposedly quite fast.
So but then the table we have to create manually, or is the Portlet will create by itself?
Okay, if we talk about the tables, then we need to go to the surface layer, because the one that we just create right now is actually only for the front layer, only for the MVC part, the UI. That's why there is nothing more here except the controller and the view. So it's only the view and controller. Even the model, they don't have it, since the model later will be embedded into the surface. So
so the data structure is defined as service now.
Yeah. So it's up to developers whether they will go for the starting development from the front or from the back. It's actually up to developers.
Okay.
We can do both way lah. But to have a full view, we may need to create both sides together. So now we create the
so in other words, we don't touch the database at all, right?
Yeah. So now we create another module. Registration service. Since we want to build the service, then previously we select the MVC Portlet as a standard UI. Now we create the service builder. I will explain later on the service XML com.cyrus.registration, for example. Finish. Still building the template. So if we remember the previous slide, this is actually every single full stack portlet will be service, UI and API. So the UI will be the MVC portlet, service and API will be combined together inside the service module. So now the Gradle is already finished. Then this is what we just create, registration service. Inside registration service, they will have two sub module. This is the service itself and the API. Okay. If we take a look at this moment, they don't have any code at all. There is no Java code, there is no class. It's just a standard Gradle, which is actually referred to the platform, and one file called service.xml. This is actually the one that I explained previously. So when we go for the service layer, actually we just need to focus on this service.xml. Okay, so what is inside the service.xml? Okay, I will close others first to make it easier. Okay. This is all tags for service builder, the service XML. The package is actually the one that we defined previously. The namespace is actually used to identify our modules. Before we going forward, we need to take a look at the database first. So all of these tables is actually default Liferay tables. So if we want to create our custom tables, then in Liferay we need to have some naming convention to make it unique. So that's the purpose of the namespace. So every single service.xml, they should have their own namespace. For example, this maybe we call it Cyrus, for example, and the entity. This is the sample entity, the sample dummy entity. Then we just need to modify into our tables what kind of tables that we want to build. For example, if we want to create tables name registration, then we create table registration. So actually the service XML looks like the place where we create a tables if we don't have the table yet.
Yeah.
Okay, we thought if we don't have the table yet, inside this entity there is two services option that we able to control, local service and remote service. What is the purpose of local and remote service? Local service actually used to provide a local call from same GVM. I mean, if we call, if we talk about the AGB3, they have the mechanism for local and remote. Remote usually provide for API call from another machine, another GVM, but local is usually used to provide a call from the same GVM internally. If we want to call internal inside the same GVM, then we better use local service, because it will not get another round way just to go in. So the local is look like we go direct call. Remote we need like moving into the a web to get in. It will be something like that.
Okay.
So the purpose is that if you don't need any API, for example, registration can we do it from others. For example, we with like mobile app registration. Then when we create a mobile app registration, then our apps must connect to core engineer registration. On that case, then the remote service is required.
Okay.
But if you don't need a remote service, then you can disable this thing.
Okay.
So this more like the configuration on how we build the automation code. The name will be table name. Then every table inside Liferay should have the primary key. So for example, this one will be registration ID. Type long is the standard in Liferay if you want to use an increment. Group ID is actually used to identify the site. We may need to remember the previous lessons that inside Liferay we could have multiple sites.
Okay.
Every single site actually identified by group ID. So the same portlet can be used differently between one site and another site, but to make it easier for any admin grab the data for their site only, then we need to have the group ID. So the reasons that we may need to follow the standard one is to understand what is the requirement. Because for example, what is the purpose of the group ID? I don't have a group ID column. We should not have something like that. But after we understand the purpose of multi-site, then it is highly recommend to you for you to have. Beside the group ID, there's company ID. What is a company ID? Company ID is actually the beside multi-site, Liferay can also work as a multi-tenant, multi-company. So if we create the multi-company, company A have site A.com, company B.A.com also, then we need to define for company also. Unless if we don't have a multiple company, then we can ignore.
Okay.
On most case, most case, we would not have company ID. User ID, username. This is more like log or audit data standard. Who access, when access, who modify, when modify. This is standard, and this is actually the standard column that we may create. Like if we refer to, okay, let's say this is the registration, then we have first field called, for example, name. Sorry, naming standard will be lowercase name, email. So email will be string. Age, date of birth, so in this table we will have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 column. If you need more column, we can just add more column. For example, gender. Since only 2 options, then I put it boolean. Okay, this will be our column beside the standard one. Order is actually used for standard ordering. It will be ascending or descending, and which field will be the default order. I can put name here. Order and finder is actually optional. This is the sample template for Liferay, so the purpose is that to make developer easier to understand on what is available inside default Liferay. Every column must match with any of these. Address, I put it small, sorry, to follow the naming convention.
The under audit fields user ID is the person who log in, right?
Yeah, supposedly.
Person log in.
It's the audit information.
So user ID is always unique. Right?
Yeah. Gender, okay. Finder is actually used to create the custom query. Previously we have shared with you about the standard automation is actually only generate the CRUD, create, read, update, delete. There is no finder for specific, but in real project usually we need to like do query. I want to find all the registered person who the gender is male, for example. Then maybe the query will looks like the finder. I put the gender. This is okay to make it different with the above. Find by Jantina. Find by Jantina. Return will be list. Collection will be list. And what is the finder column? Then we put gender. This column name must exactly same. The name of the finder can be anything because this later will be developed, will be generated as a code, as a method's name. Okay, now we have order, we have a finder. Or if you want to find exactly only single record, return type, name. For example, if I want to search by email, usually the email will be unique, right? Then the return type is not list, it's a single. Since this is single, then I put the same object as a entity.
This finder methods is actually like a stop procedure. Stop procedure, or is it a function in?
It's a function.
Inside MySQL.
Actually,
I mean, when you create this one, it will create the function in MySQL.
No. Actually, it's Liferay will not create any function on store procedure at all in our database, but Liferay just create the SQL query to do tables, to create the tables itself, and others than that they will create as a Java persistent, Java code.
So the SQL is created inside the Liferay itself.
Yeah. So later I can show you how it's work. So in this sample, I try to with a simple query, find by email. The return will be single, unique. The finder column should be email. Okay. So we assume that we have finished our service.xml. We save. Then the next thing we need to do, actually as easy as to build or to generate. Remember previously we don't have anything here. Then after we go to the Gradle, registration service, we need to build the service. We have a service XML, right? And we can run the build service. So at this moment, Liferay will create all automation code starting from the model. The model will be called registration. they will also create the service. The service will be registration local service and also registration remote service, because both are true. Beside the service, Liferay will create the codes called registration persistent. So let's recheck.
So if we were to update the service there, let's say we remove email, it will update the library itself, is it?
Yeah. So do you have any experience using Hibernate before?
No.
Hibernate. So inside the Hibernate, actually there is a similar mechanism on code automation. It's called the reverse engineer. So we create the table first, then from this table we generate the code. But there is one disappointing item inside the Hibernate generator. You can only generate the code once. After you generate, for example, and you modify some codes, and then you generate again, what happens? Your code will be replaced. Inside the Hibernate generator is something like that. So Liferay have a unique way to avoid that's happen, because I don't think as a developer we just do one step and everything done. I don't think it will be go that way. Change, maybe the requirement change, maybe we miss something and we need to put and we need to generate again instead of type everything into our code. Liferay have a standard platform that they call it a service builder, and we can build many times as long as actually there is no limitation.
Okay.
So when we need to update our automation code, then we hit the service builder. So after we build service builder, now we try to refresh, and we have a lot of source here. Okay, so Liferay will create the table query, the Hibernate query. This is actually the code that why Liferay can generate the SQL, MySQL table. So this is the tables query. Sequence, index, SQL, all generated, and also they built the Java code. The model is based on the registration. So on this point, we can highlight why we put the name is capital, because at the end, Liferay will use this name as a name of the class, and if we follow the Java naming convention, the name of the class must be capital, but others it should be lowercase, because it's actually just a standard convention lah. If you go another way also of course can, yeah, but it's not recommend if we follow, otherwise if we don't have the standard, then the code from the developer will be mixed. Okay, this is the model. Inside the model they have a model IMPL cache, model MPL, and so on and so on. So I think inside .NET also you will have like a Pojo or model, similar, right? But maybe many developers have a question, why Liferay generates so many files just for model? It's actually the reason on why Liferay use the service builder that able to generate code many times, because actually as a developer you just need to focus on the IMPL one. If you want to put your codes, usually if you follow the note for developers, never reference this class directly, always should use the blah 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 blah. Also, sorry, this is the service, local service, and remote service. Usually they don't use remote directly object name, surface XML. If local, they put some local. Yeah. Empty everything. So where is the code? Actually, they wrap into the interface. The IMPL class is used for developers to put their custom code later. Okay, later I can share more detail on the how we put our custom code. Since we have two finder, by default, Liferay will not have this finder available out of the box, but the persistent is already there. Okay, I try to slowing down the service. So this is all codes generated automatically inside the service. All mostly is the implementation. If we talk about the Java standard tier, they will have the implementation and interface. So where is the interface? The interface will be located inside the API. There is model interface, there is service interface, and also persistent interface. So interface should be, we should not put any code inside the interface, since the interface actually auto generated. So if we standard flow in Java from UI class to the controller. This is the service. Then go down to the persistent. This persistent directly connected to it. Okay. But then inside the control, usually this have interface. This also have interface. So we don't go directly to the code, but we go for the interface. The reason is that if there is any change, actually we can directly code on the implementation without change the interface. And the implementation is actually the place where we put the logic later. Okay, now we have built the service, and
so let me recap. API is where you put all the UI. Is it?
No. The API will be the interface. Actually, the API is the connector. It's the connector only.
Oh, okay.
The UI will be located inside another modules. So if we go for this, so every one stack modules will be UI. The UI will be what we built previously, the MVC portlet, and the service will have two parts, which is the implementation code, which we call it the service, and the API, which we use as an interface. So interface used to as a bridge between any component. Okay, I think to understand more about this API, we will go more details after we deploy. Okay, we just built the service. Now we try to deploy the default one first. This is the registration service. We can deploy all.
So once you deploy, you package it to a jar, right?
Yeah.
So once you jar, you upload it to Liferay, and Liferay, when you load it into the pages, you will create the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
So previously we don't have the tables yet, right? There is no tables at all for this registration. And okay, where is the window? Show view console. Okay. the deploy is successful. We check the Tomcat. Okay, there is 2 modules started here: COM registration service and COM registration API. And we can also check directly from the Google shell above. LB registration. Previously this is the UI, the previous one. Now we try to search. We have another 2, the service and service, the service implementation and API.
So the NPC is the UI lah.
The NPC is the UI.
API service actually is the connecting to the database.
Yeah. So the API will be bridge or the interface between anything.
Which is remote lah. When
Yeah.
the remote comes
Yeah.
Okay. So if the remote is off, the API is not used.
Okay.
Right?
This service API is actually not used for the remote call. Not yet. We don't go that's remote web service. So we use a different terms here. In Liferay, if we talk about the API, it's actually we talk about this thing, OSGI service registry. So the API later will be registered into this thing. That's why any other modules which actually want to connect into that table, they just need to link to that portion. It looks like
so the local actually use the API itself.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because if we talk about the Java development, when we still use the monolithics, means everything inside the same package. If everything inside the same package, it's easier for one module to call another module since on the same host. Now we talk about a smaller module which actually located at different hosts. My house compared to Ian house compared to Andrew house is different. So I cannot just call, for example, Hisan. I need some bridge. So the bridge is called the API. Okay. So every service module, every table should have the API. Otherwise, then the service will never be used because no one can. It's like we build a house without a door, so no one can enter. API with the bridge or the door.
You cannot go direct to the database without the API, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because with this OSGI architecture, the service they don't provide the door.
Understand.
So every door for this service is actually they map it into the API. Okay. Now we have the service available. Then we check about the database. This is our new table. Cyrus registration, have column, group ID, same, user. It's the same like what we defined inside the service XML. Okay. Same. Then name, email, age, DOB, name, email, age, DOB, address, gender. Yeah, I think it's auto created now. Okay. So after we have a service or we have the database, now how we connect from our UI into database. By default, at this moment we cannot connect yet. For example, as if we go back to the registration portlet. Okay, example, we create a standard class here to for example, to connect, to display anything. Let me try to to make it fast, I can get from any service also. Registration. Okay, for example, this refresh. I just take some sample code. I can explain one by one later. Log, how we need log, and how we need this render. Okay. This registration portlet. Sometimes we just need to. Okay, at this moment we don't use this first, or maybe only one simple render. So, if we refer to the previous portlet, UI portlet, this controller cannot send anything to the view because there is no place to this controller to store the message. Okay. Now I create another function that actually will override. We use the Java overriding to tell the view that actually render request. I send some message. Set attribute string, for example. We can put anything first. Let's say result. I say no result, something like that, for example. So I send this string into the UI. And what is the purpose of this log? Instead of usually some developer put the command using system out print, which actually will be print inside the log. But this is really not effective in terms of resource. It will take a lot of resource.
Okay.
So the better way, we use the log. It's use the log4j, the standard framework for logging. So we can put any tracker here to make it easier for us to understand where is the code flow over. Of course, we can use the debug if we are running on our local. But if there is some issue on the server side, then we cannot do debugging on the server side. Usually we just trace based on the log. So it's important to put the log default render page or maybe main page. It's just to identify that this is the main page. Okay. So we modify the controller and put and throw some string into the screen, into the view, and then from the view, previously we create this thing. Okay, we get, okay, we just display. To display inside the portlet, we can use, this is comes from standard Spring MVC. This can be the name of the message that we pass from the controller. This is the result. Okay. Then I put this result. Yeah. Closely.
This is a free marker code, is it?
No.
No,
It's a Spring MVC.
Oh,
so
it looks so similar.
yeah, a lot of similar. Spring,
Okay.
free marker, and then velocity have little bit different. Velocity use what
hash.
hashtag? Yeah, the hash.
Okay.
Like that. Okay, to we put some label in the front. Message. So if we can identify here, the one that have a warning yellow means this key don't have the translation yet. Actually the key should not have any space. Is Liferay UA message is actually to create the label, but if we talk about the multi-language, we should put all the label into 2 different languages, right? So we create the key. The key is the one that we put into the screen, and then later we create the properties file, which is the translator. Close to the something like that. So we inside the language properties, we register. Example, the view. We create this key, and then we put in what I put this. The default will be language property will be the default one. For example, if we set the default as an English, so if there is no other properties file, then they will display this thing. This is the table result. Okay. We can put more based on the standard language convention. For example, I copy, I paste here. Language and ID. I forget about the naming convention for Indonesia. Underscore en. En is for Indonesia. Underscore en. Translate into bahasa. Isi table. This is to translate the library. So we see the yellow will be disappear. So we try to throw some message, and then we capture from this UI, and we try to deploy on the registration MVC. Already deployed. Then you may check on the screen. Yeah, I don't put any big point. So this is the label, which is used the standard English. This is the message that we pass from the controller. Registration Portlet, no result, right? Correct. And actually this is how we pass the message from the controller to the view. Now we try how to connect between the UI, the MVC, to the database. Okay. By default, we cannot call any registration model here. So there is no connection yet into the service module. So how we do connect this MVC into the database? Then we need to make a connection from the Gradle. We may remember previously that the Gradle is actually the one that we use to link between one modules and the dependency modules. Okay, since both codes are actually available in the same workspace, then we don't need to use like version and something like this. For example, to connect the UI into database, we can call the component deploy like this one, for example, compile only project, which is actually the same project inside the API. So in this case, this is registration. We just need to modify this thing, which module that we want to connect. Since we want to link between registration MVC and registration service with using bridge or interface registration service API, then we need to put modules. This one registration service must be exactly same like what we have in here, registration service. Then this is the submodule one, registration service API. Registration service API. Okay. So when we need to connect the MVC to the database, we just need to connect to the API.
Okay.
We save. After we save, by default, it will not reflect directly. Let me try. Still don't have. So how to make it work? We need to update. We need to refresh the Gradle, because when every time we change the Gradle file, actually it will not take any effect unless we refresh it. We refresh using the Gradle refresh. So this one, Gradle, refresh Gradle project. So by this action, actually Gradle will read the configuration again with the Gradle, and they will try to connect to whatever dependency that we define inside this Gradle. Okay, now we have refresh the Gradle, and we refresh the code. Can be able to get refresh. Okay, save registration APC, save refresh. I think there's some mistake link on the Gradle modules, registration service API. Since this link must be exactly same. If we have a typo, then cannot connect. Service API compile only should be similar. Reservation service API. Registration service API. Registration service registration service API. Yeah, should be correct. Let's try again. The registration. Refresh. Get all registration. So sometimes the IDE a little bit they don't reflect about the links or the modules that we have linked inside the Blender, but supposedly this should not be a problem. If we want to check, we try to compile. If there is some code syntax issue, supposedly the code compilation will be error. Try to click and deploy. MPC now. Registration details still not fine. We then go to the project, click MPC and registration. Click what? Registration. Oh, I think the one that we use the name is conflict with the because they have a registration Java servlet. It comes from the Java. So the one that we pick actually already occupied by Java.
Okay.
So actually the same exactly code we we already try to test exactly the same. So supposedly if we take the correct name, then it should appear here. For example, we create the list reservation. This is the package that we have, like com Cyrus reservation model, and so on and so on. But since the registration is already occupied, then actually we need to take another object, like registration Cyrus or something like that.
So when you want to do the CRUD, you have to write your own codes, is it?
Okay.
Or is this just additional codes on top of the CRUD?
If you want to create the CRUD, actually all the codes is already there.
It's already there.
It's already there. Okay, I show you the for the registration we may need to fix later.
Okay.
About we just need to change the name.
Okay.
We use the existing one that we have prepared. To prove, actually we can take out the build the Gradle. Okay. This is the reservation. So at this moment we can call every function inside the service, like reservation service util, local service util. It actually comes from the service layer, exactly like what we have done previously with the registration. But since the registration is already occupied by another Java package, that cannot be used. So to prove that actually the link comes from here, we can take out first reservation. Yeah. For example, if I take this thing, it's actually a big on default. Then we refresh the Gradle. Then all the codes will error because they missed the link. But when we set it back, okay, we put the link into the service API, see, and then we refresh the Gradle. Yeah, it will be back. The connection will be okay. So actually this is the only things which we need to highlight on how we connect between the UI into the database. And about your question, can we create how we store the data into the table,
Yeah.
and how we read the table. So actually all this code is still default. We don't modify at all about the code. Like how to get all the data, we can get the count or how many data are available inside the table. Then we use the get all record get all record inside the table starting from 0 to n. If we want to have like pagination, at the end we need to like from 0 to 10, and then from 11 to 20, something like that. And this is a default code generated by Liferay.
Okay, so we just copy paste this one into this reservation portlet, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So since this is a reservation portlet, we show you on. Okay, we put more. Okay, we link our registration into reservation. Hopefully it works. Since the reservation is okay, right? Okay, then compile. Okay, then we do. Reservation, it can connect. So for example, I change the table service into reservation. This reservation result reservation local service util dot get all reservation 10 first reservation, and this result is an array list, so we can display actually inside the table okay, as a list, for example. So can render send to from this result. Okay, I put one more object into the list, and let's check inside the sales reservation itself. We need to check the XML, the service XML, to understand what is the table's name. It will be full reservation. Okay, we check the full reservation, so there is no data yet. And if we take a look, it's a little bit similar. I put the three objects here, of order by name, finder by age, which is a collection. Okay, now we have put the reservation list into the controller, the registration list into the controller, then we may need to pass to the field registration. Since this is the array list, we can use GSTL. For each item list, we map to variable, let's say reservation reserve. and this is how we display. For example, we create inside the div class for is actually result dot. This one must be matched with the column name or object name, age, email. Then I put the breakpoint. Email. Okay. So that's so. This one I may need to take out change. If we talk about form, supposedly the form not in the field. We create add or edit form letter inside the editor GSP, for example. Okay. Now
So the result actually come from where?
this one.
Yeah.
This one.
Where do you declare it?
Okay. This come from the message that we throw.
Result is one bar. Okay.
Yeah. Previously we throw some object,
Yeah.
array list, called list. Since we iterate, so we map every single array into
Yeah.
one object,
Okay.
and we call it. Registration efficient. What? And yeah, they up already. Yeah, still don't have any result because the table is empty.
Okay.
Then we need some button to add. Okay, we'll wrap everything. Okay, this one. For HTML structure, I think you can use any. You should have already a better structure than mine. We will put some button in here. Button row. Button name. Okay, we call it add button. Value, we need to pass to an additional screen, so we need to create the render portlet. This is to tell where this button will go. Portlet parent one is add. Then the name, I really forget the name of the this is a constant. MCC render command name is a constant. And this is, we can put anything. For example, add reservation. Or we can use this one once of yeah, either can use both. This one is add, or we can use from Liferay also. If I change to add, so we create a new render command to open another field for us fill in the data. So we need to prepare our field to make it faster. I just create the new JSP here. Add reservation, the JSP. Okay. To inherit all the text, we call the same. And inside this field, we may need full page, then a form. We create a form. It's actually a standard like input form. We have a name, can be anything. Then method. Usually we use post method for submission, and then action. This actually when we do click button submit, what happened? So we create the submit action. This variable must be declared later on the action parameter. So Portlet action URL create a variable exactly like what we submit here. With the name maybe a simple one, save. So when we click button, later it will go to the action and find save.
It's new code. 9522. 9522. That's the 9522. But the reception that you tell when you're going up.
Sorry. So inside the form, usually we create the input. Since reservation only have 3 items, name, required true, for example. Input age, not mandatory, but I put validation and UI validator should be number or integer, and email input email require UI validator email. Using this custom form, we can build either the standard validator, it can be followed from the allow UI here, or we can also use the regex. So any validation we can create here, like must be plus 60 or must be for example a standard prefix must be something like that. We can use the regex.
Okay.
So after this one, then we create a button to submit. I wrap inside the row button, type submit, value submit or save. We have a form already. We have a okay submit action. We deliver letter. Now we try to link between add reservation GSP into the button for add. By default, when we click this button, they will go to the add render URL, but then we don't have any controller to render this page, since the default controller is actually only to render the view. It will always go to the view. So we need to create another class for edit renderer. New class. For example, we call it registration render editor. Okay. This must implement the render command. Sorry, to make it fast. I also never remember every code, so usually we just follow render. Yeah. We also need to put some component with class MVC render command. Okay. Add component. This one will be the path for the view. For example, our view, this one, add value will be add reservation. So we copy into this one, and MVC command name for render will be add reservation, and to mapping this render into the same module as a registration, we need to call the naming portlet. Java's name portlet is actually come from here. We use the registration, right? We use registration portlet. Registration portlet keys. So if we take a look inside the main portlet, we have this portlet name. So we need to use the same portlet name into our render, so that they able to understand that actually they comes from the same modules. The others we clear. since this registration, this render implement MPC render, so they need to implement method from their interface. Okay. The return will be the path from our JSP. So for example, if we take a look from the edit render, so the return will be let's edit the JSP. Inside our render, the return will be slash add reservation the JSP. But would be better if we have a log so that we can track back actually where is the code running at this time. So we put the copy is not log factory master to copy. And then we put some log here. Before we pass in edit page. Now we have a one round code between view, okay, this view. When we click button add, it will go to the render with the command add reservation. It's actually we just create. This is the render command add reservation, and then from this controller they will be bring to the add reservation JSP to this page. Okay. Now we try to deploy. Let's recheck. There's no, okay. This is the button from add that we just create, and this is the allow UI buttons that I create. Yeah, it's a little bit too awkward, so we just use the add ref button on there. I think this one is better. When we click, then they go to the registration page. This registration page is actually comes from this one, registration. If you take a look inside the log,
but how does it know which tab to go actually, the registration?
Which one?
You go up, the tab. How does it know to go inside? Or you already drag inside?
Oh, actually they don't go to...
Oh, it's on its own.
And yeah, it's still on the same page.
Okay.
So actually they will not going any other place.
Okay.
Since they are still on this page, then when we go add, they will go to the render controller and just link. That's why if we take a look inside the network, this will not have any browser looping.
Okay.
They will use the SPA.
Okay.
So one of 9 requests. Okay. Yeah. quite 5.
Okay.
Now we have already form already age, for example A, B, C, yeah, error must be number. Or we can also put the error message in here. Number error, please insert number only. Okay. We have page already, but then this action still warning, means we don't have the action to handle the save mechanism. Now we need to create one more class to handle the action. Registration action. Render. And forget this action format. So same like render, we need to create a component, but this component is for action, since the component must be on top of class name. So to make it fast, I have prepared sample component on the action. We can compare to the render. The registration action. This will be registration keys. This is the name of the portlet. We need to take out this. Okay. Then they will do a process. Okay, right. Then when we click this button, the save button, when we click submit, it will go to submit action. This submit action name will be called save. So we need to change the MVC command name as a save. So when we do save, actually they will go this way. Okay, so how we can save this information? First, we need to capture the information come from our view. There is some variable called name, string name. Liferay already provide the util to get the parameter. Since the name will be string, so I action request, I get exactly from this name input, I put inside this name. For age is integer, so I get the integer value of provided request where the name attribute is age. Then another one is email. It's also string. Action request. Okay. some lock. We try to capture whether the value is submitted correctly to the controller or not. Name is name and each will be age. This is just to check whether the value comes to the controller or not. So we have the we assume that we already capture all the value from the screen, from the UI. Then we need to send this information into database. So we call the service reservation model R reservation model local service dot create reservation. We need to set the primary key for this record. We can use the auto increment Liferay counter local service util dot increment. It will get the long increment. So we have the reservation object. Then we set the age with age, set name with name, set email with the email. Okay, this is the information that we type from the screen. But if we refer to the service XML, sometimes they ask this thing. Let's check about the service for reservation. This is reservation. So how to get the group ID or company ID or user who are create this thing? Liferay have a session base called temps display. And display. Action request. You forget on how to get the temps display reservation. Let me find some sample of the system. Get the time display. From action request get and remove. So the temp display is quite important for us to understand that actually this will handle almost every standard information which tied to the user. So for example, if we want to get who is the user login, we use the user Liferay. We can get from temps display dot get user. Then we understand who is the one who log in. And if you want to get the site ID, company ID, everything's available here. Example, this one we can get real user, or maybe if you use the what you call, if your admin login, they can impersonate another user. So inside this time display, we actually able to see who is the real user and who is the impersonate user. So all send information is actually available in the temps display, include the group ID, the company ID. Many information is actually available here.
Is this temp display the same as the one in the template where you can use a free marker to?
No,
different, is it?
No, it's not different.
No,
So this is actually, the one that make the developer confused usually because the name using the temp, but actually this is the session. This is the session information, which inside Liferay they wrap into one class called temp display. But the information inside this session is actually all information related to the Liferay, related to the user itself. So for example, in here, if I want to set group ID, I can get from temp display dot get site group ID. r.set company ID, you can get from temp display dot get company ID. We set the user ID. Since we don't have the input for user, but we can get from user dot get user ID. Actually same from temp display. Set created today, or that it will be standard. Okay, so we assume that we have put user ID, username. Okay, we put another one username. Sorry, wrong ID. Registration action. Put one more r.set username will be you get full name. And then after we set, we just need to update it. Update reservation with the object. I think this is all flow to store the information from the UI to the database.
So every CRUD that is created, we have to create every single class for each of them, is it? Manually?
Yeah, every table. Yeah. One single service XML can have multiple tables. For example, I can create another table here. Let's say order, say EPF order, with a column name, ID, type will belong, primary, true, and any other column. I just create one column, for example. Entity, then we set local service true. I set only the local service. The UID usually used for code. Okay, it's a simple table with 2 columns. So after we create the action, now seems everything's ready to submit into the database. We just deploy the new MVC. deploy. Okay, maybe add this. Sorry. Simple. Then we submit, wrong typo. Okay, when we do click, your success is already submit. Check the log. The name is MD, the age will be 32, email. Okay, the information is captured inside the controller. Then we check inside the database, inside full registration. Reservation. Yeah. Reservation ID, group ID we get from the temp display, company ID we get from the temp display, user ID is my user, the user that I use, created by today, still using the UTC. This is the information that we put from the form. It's already entered to the database, and yeah, it's also displayed here. We don't put any label yet, but this is the information. If we put more, okay, we should have, yeah, the information is okay.
When you say controller just now is which part again?
Sorry.
Controller.
So the controller is actually every single task can be handled by single controller. For example, we have 3 classes here inside the registration FVC. We have 3 classes. The main class is to handle the basic portlet information and render for one view called DSP. If we back to the MVC mechanism model view controller, this model will be reservation view. For view JSP, the controller will be this one. But if we talk about another view, the edit view, then the controller for edit view will be this one, the render for edit. And when we go for action submit, then we will put on the another action. So actually inside the action we can have more than one method. The reasons that we try to split is actually to make the developer easier. So it's a lot more easier to find which pairing, this view with this render, this view with this render, this view with this render, and to make the code is simple enough. Otherwise, for example, if you wrap it into a single class, it will be huge if you talk about the real project. So by splitting each other, actually it's a little bit easy for us to modify.
Okay, so what if after you submit it goes to the thank you page or something like that?
Thank you page, then we need to create the thank you page.
Or can we redirect? Where is the part that we can redirect?
Yeah.
It's
So
here, is it?
we need to redirect here.
Oh, okay.
For example, action request set render. I forget the comment. Redirect and action response or response. Action response set render parameter. Let me should be inside the after we set set the database action respond, send redirect, send redirect to the new render for new page. Let's say the page will be thank you, for example. Then we create new GSP. Okay, I just copy to make it fast. Copy. Thank you. Of course, we don't need the font. Maybe just style. Line center. So this one we put so since we have one more page, okay. I think we put one more. Back. And then right. Let's do back. Okay, we have a new field, then we create another field. Okay, first I create copy. Thank you. Thank you. Station, thank you. Then the comment will be thank you. Thank you page. The name will be thank you DSP. Okay. So the MVC command will be thank you, and then we send the redirect to MVC command. Thank you. Okay. Since everything set. Started. rendering still not working. I need to fix the sorry, the parameter to semi direct. I think this one is not correct. Let me check. MVC part. This is the page, but still empty. Let me check the OAUI get to registration. We don't need this thing. It's already redirect to one page. Actually, the correct page. Check in. Thank you. It's not valid. Okay. Yeah. Inside the registration action, yeah, it seems like in 7.1 starting to duplicate it, the FTC pad. Let me try another. Liferay change the mechanism in 7.1. If we use this one, direct to FTC pad. Thank you. For this one, cut the OSGI. Sometimes when we face some configuration issue, then they will not deploy correctly. So we can try to deploy from apps. Slow. Yeah, it's auto deployed, but it's quite take for a while.
Okay.
Okay. Check. Mid page, yeah. Cannot use and redirect. I think in 7.0, supposedly we should use this registration action. Usually we use this one to redirect, but seems 7.1 they duplicated.
So it's a JDK or is it the library has
Liferay.
its own library? Is it?
Yeah, yeah. This is from the Liferay. Action response is from the Liferay. So I try to can be suppress for them because mostly they will go to the right way. Or actually, if they duplicate it, they will supposedly propose the new way to redirect.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we may need to check into the developer. But actually, the idea is that from one controller, we can direct to any other page easily. Supposedly, just we need to follow the standard way used by Liferay. As long as we follow that Liferay way, it will be easier to either to get the documentation or, for example, it's also easier for us to create more view.
But then if library 7, if you were to migrate to library 7.1, we're having this kind of issue, and we have to like run through the whole
Yeah,
before
yeah.
going, even though it's 0.1
Yeah.
upgrade.
Yeah.
Wow.
So actually, for every duplicated item, each Liferay should have some. They propose another way. But the thing is that, of course, since the new version is just released by a few weeks ago, maybe I don't think that everybody able to catch up what is the upgrade things, because it's quite a major upgrade.
Yeah.
Major upgrade. So, but if we have more time to learn, I think, yeah, at the end we will always able to see. For example, later after lunch break, I think we can share on Liferay on 7.1. They provide a lot of sample modules.
Okay.
This is the sample modules comes from Liferay, and this one for 7.1 we don't see the sample yet. So
Okay.
so yeah, while waiting the 7.1 sample, maybe yeah, as a partner, as a vendor, we still need time to learn these new things.
Okay.
Because as what we see since like 2 days ago, we found many ugly things inside Liferay. So yeah, it's actually before this training also I asked which version of Liferay is 7.1. Are you really want to take that way? And the one that I mentioned is, do you have the subscription or not? Because if you have a subscription, then it's quite safe. For example, if we face any roadblock, something like this, we can just easily ask Liferay using the ticket, and Liferay should reply as soon as possible, because that's based on their Lexa. But if we don't have a subscription, then we may need to use the stable one.
They don't actually maintain their old objects, right? Let's say 7.0 just now when you try to do the redirect, it doesn't maintain the 7.0 object in 7.1.
It's still not clear yet. Either, for example, either there is some bug issue inside new release, or either the deprecated item is not fully optimized by Liferay. That's why we need some test to take a look whether they have a workaround for this. But of course, it will be a little bit take some time, because for example, if we talk about the rendering, we have shown to you few sample, like from one GSP to another GSP redirection is supposedly work fine. But the thing is, when from one controller to another GSP, is we just actually, the clue is that actually what is the new key that we use for that will work for this Liferay 7.1.
So later you're going to show me how to do the search thing that's not mentioned.
Okay, the search is actually already there.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to get the search, then this is the search Portlet. Inside Liferay, they have a lot of search. They also a little bit blur on this. Actually, this is the search bar, but then they have a search inside and search option. In Liferay 7.0, they only have a single search, or two search. One is search for everything, the other one is actually search for CMS. This search bar we can drop on anything. Then when we try to search, it will display all the result based on what the key. Maybe I can share a little bit on search in 7.0, since 7.1 will be quite new. And yeah, to be honest, if you want to get more info about 7.1, then need to go to the documentation for 7.1. But the thing is that all modules inside the search, inside the Liferay, actually we can take a look directly from the Google Shell.
Okay.
LB search, for example, where it is located. Portal search web. I think this one, Portal search web. So inside the Portal search web, it's version 3.0.8. Then inside the source code, yeah, we just need to find where it is located inside the source code. All modules. Oh. Slim util portal aspect G. Let's try this. It's gonna look like this. And yeah, I think later, maybe after lunch, I try to help you find the source code.
Okay.
So, but supposedly, if you refer to the design, you don't need to modify the portlet since it's supposedly work already. The thing that sometimes we need to modify is just the UI. And we can modify the UI using the CSS. You just need to find the class, for example, search bar, keyword. Nah, this thing we can modify using the CSS. Usually
Okay.
that's the one that works.
Okay. Continue after lunch.
Yeah.
Sure.